Hello, San Francisco, and welcome once again to the Angelic Troublemakers. I'm your host, Alan Jones, and on today's program, I support the sex in car pardon. I'm bringing you this program this week based on a pardon by our governor, Gavin Newsom. Uh, California Governor Gavin Newsom uh, posthumously pardoned my hero. Newsom grants posthumous pardon to civil rights leader Bayard Rustin. Now, if you notice, that's from the Los Angeles Times. This is also going to be from some other, if I can get my to work right. Let's see here. My goodness, where am I doing? There's a Times Magazine. California governor pardoned civil rights leader Bayard Rustin over gay sex conviction. The Washington Post. The New York Times. And of course, the San Francisco Chronicle. Newsom pardoned civil rights leader Bayard Rustin convicted of gay sex in the 1950s. Now, I have to go back just a bit. Not to the 1950s yet, but the fact that I showed the five different papers that this posthumous pardon was in is because Bayard Rustin is a civil rights great. And this program, the Angelic Troublemakers, is named after Bayard Rustin's term, Angelic Troublemakers. I was listening to a talk that he was giving to some people that he was mentoring or instructing, and in it, he said communities need more angelic troublemakers. And what an angelic troublemaker is one who gets involved in the wheels of social justice without causing harm to stop things, to really bring about change in a way that is not filled with violence, vandalism, the graffiti, uh, turning over police cards, and stuff like that. The issue that sparked me was, of course, I didn't know Bayard Rustin at the time. Um, I had gone to a Christmas uh, dinner or party many years ago, and one of the ladies at the party uh, asked me if I knew Bayard Rustin. This may have been, I don't know, 5 more years ago. Now, I have to say, as sad as it is, didn't know who he was. Now, how could so many years pass and I not know of this great American? I don't get it. But the fact that Bayard Rustin was a civil rights great, he has an awful lot to do with some of the civil rights things that uh, involve Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was educated for the fact that Bayard Rustin was a mentor to Dr. King. Bayard Rustin helped in the bus boycott. Bayard Rustin was the architect of the 1963 March on Washington. But let's go back 10 years. After delivering a speech in Pasadena, California in 1953, Rustin was arrested for having sex in a parked car. The charge was lewd and lasciviousness, or lewd vagrancy, excuse me. The sex was consensual, but he was jailed for 60 days and ordered to register as a sex offender. Now, I'm going to confess something. I've had more than my share of sex in a car. But in 1953, whenever this happened, it was a weapon of the government, who were opposed to homosexuality, to take people who were having consensual sex and not only incarcerate them, jail them, but to have them register as sex offenders. Now, this went on for decades. Their records were for decades. But Gavin Newsom, he was being advised by some people to do what he could to not only pardon Bayard Rustin, but he had a clemency initiative, which will allow others who are arrested and convicted of similar offenses to apply for a pardon. Now, as you know, if you've been watching this program, I have been talking about the pardon powers being taken away from the governor of California. And so if I applaud this move by the governor, why do I think that the power to be pardoned, or the pardon power, should be taken away from the governor? Now, there are rules in the state of California where the governor has some pardon powers, but then he has to go through a series of courts depending on the charges of others. And I have this CaliforniaClemency.org website where I introduce a new clemency system. And this new clemency system gives power to the people to grant pardons. Now, why do I do this? Well, the governor has this issue where he is saying that people can apply for a pardon for this these sex crimes where it was consensual adults. Well, let's just say there's 1,000 of them. There probably are, knowing how law enforcement worked back in those days. Well, does not the governor have better things to do and more important pressing things to do than sign off on 1,000 pardons for sex acts by consensual adults that happened 20, 30, 40, and 50 years ago and beyond? Now, the issue is we need a new protocol for granting pardons. If I might say so, our president is really pushing the issue. Quite frankly, I hope he pardons some of his cronies that are caught up into some shenanigans. Why? Because it further uh, illustrate my call that the pardon powers be taken away from the president also. There are differences. There is presidential pardons that deal with federal crimes, and then there are state pardons. Each governor or each state has a procedure for granting pardons. And I'm saying that for as important of an issue as running the country and running the states are concerned, let's put it this way. We, the people, are not going to be pardoning child molesters. Now, if somebody can prove that they were falsely convicted of child molesting, I don't have a problem with getting that person a pardon. It is not likely that we, the people, are going to be pardoning a white-collar crime where people like Bernie Madoff made off with hundreds of millions of dollars and stuff like that. But if he had high friends in high places, he might get one. The president, who is it? President Clinton pardoned a man by the name of Mark Rich. Mark Rich was a billionaire. And this Mark Rich was hiding in Switzerland and avoiding federal prosecution and donated to Clinton's campaign. And so he mysteriously ended up with a pardon right when the president was leaving office, which allowed him to come back into the country, no problem. All of the charges and everything was dismissed, wiped under the rug. He has no record. Now, that kind of shenanigans is going on today. And I don't appreciate the fact that people are looking at the situation from a, well, the president has the power to pardon. There are people who have 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 years that they're spending in prison for a crime that they did not commit. And under the current rules, we only have to, did they get a fair trial? It's a judge's call, and these people languish in prison because everything was done according to the books, which got them the conviction. Well, how is it that, bringing this back to a state level, Gavin Newsom can pardon a man who's been dead 30 years, which I support, but it's taken 30 years for him to release people who have deserved a pardon. Yeah, earlier this week, a man was in prison for 15 years on a crime that he did not commit. And though the technology wasn't available at the time, he is being released. I think it was released yesterday, based on the fact that DNA proved he did not commit the crime. But there's other people who are in prison right now for crimes they did not commit. Do they have to wait 15, 20, 30 years to get their pardon? Under current situations, yes. Under my California Clemency Board's issue, 30 days. 30 days is what I'm guaranteeing. Once a pardon request is sent to one of the California Clemency Boards, it will take 30 days for this individual to get their relief. Now let's bring back in what the governor's doing. The governor, if you'll let me find another screen here, the governor has a website. I'll probably blow this, but his website, ooh, I didn't. I'm surprised. If you notice that, clemency, commutations, and pardons. Gavin Newsom, Office of the Governor. This is the website in which a person can go to apply for a pardon, commutation for whatever crimes they may have been convicted of and did not do, or in the case of having sex with another man consensually 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you can go to this website to get relief. Well, can you imagine? Now that we have the governor opening the door with his clemency initiative that are offering people opportunity to clear their records through his new initiative, what about all of the people who are in prison who did not commit the crime? They have to go through the same process, and it is hard. Now, I'm basically one to believe that most of the people who, 90% of the people who are locked up currently are there for crimes they committed, and they deserve to be locked up. But I claim half of the people housed in California prisons don't need to be locked up for the long periods of time that we have them locked up for. Now, there's about 130, 140,000. Now, this does not include the millions who are on parole or have records. But as governor of the state of California, the task of giving justice to these individuals who deserve a pardon, like Bayard Rustin, is a bottleneck issue under the governor's initiative. When under mine, each one of the 58 counties of California will have its own clemency board where they will receive cases from a Sacramento head office. This Sacramento head office will have people who do most of the research. And when they find that it's valid, under this new law that's going to take me years, millions of dollars to get going, they will be able to send these requests to a county that sent the individual away. So let's just say Bayard Rustin was alive today and he was seeking relief. He doesn't have to get letters from political people. He can apply himself and all kind of other people, but it'll go to Sacramento, and the people in Sacramento will say, what? A man had sex, consensual sex with another adult. Send that to the county in which he was convicted. And so I don't know what the county in Pasadena is. Excuse me, I said San Francisco, but let's say it went to Pasadena. They would be able to sit in a room and in less than 5 minutes, in his particular case, grant him clemency, a clean record. You know, it depends on the situation. But this gentleman who received a pardon or release from prison based on the courts this past week, who 15 years later, it was determined he didn't commit the crime, he had to go through years and years and years of appeals, and some college that has a exoneration or some sort of a clemency or program with its law students, they did all the research. And in doing all of the research, then they start knocking on the door of the governor, the courts, for relief. Well, not everyone is going to get that relief. And you can knock and knock and knock till your knuckles fall off. In a lot of cases, 30 years for some people of knocking on the door of the courts. But with a new clemency protocol, all you have to do is submit it to the clemency board. And they won't do it the way the courts do it. See, the courts usually only look, did he get a proper trial? He did. I don't want to waste time. They just rejected them left and right. That's why it takes 30 years for some people to get released, because there's an awful lot of people sending writs or whatever applications or for appeals, appeal after appeal after appeal, to get a court to hear them. And if no court wants to hear them, they just remain in jail no matter how, or prison no matter how innocent they are. If the judge or if the court says, well, he did get a fair trial, they can't look at all of that evidence. And I'm saying that if we relieve the courts of the responsibility of having dealing with righting wrongs, I guarantee you there'll be an awful lot of wrongs being righted when you have common sense thinking people who will judge these issues and be able to rule. Keep in mind, doctors, lawyers, construction workers, you name it, housewives, mom and pops. These are all of the people who have built this great country. And in California, there's an awful lot of technology that has helped us. I'm just narrowing it down. Technology has helped the world. But with all of that technology at our hands, why does it still take 30 years to get somebody to hear an innocent person's plea? Or somebody who was railroaded, uh, like so many years ago, decades ago, who still have records of consensual sex and they're labeled as sex offenders because of something that happened 40 and 50 years ago. Now, true, a lot of these people have gone on, passed away, and so, they're not getting, it, this doesn't help them. But there are so many people that a new clemency process will help. When I say I support the sex in the car pardon, there's an awful lot of sex in the car pardons that are needed. And I don't think that Governor Gavin Newsom is the best person to rule on these. His office, I'm sure, does their homework. You don't just bring it into the governor and, have him sign off. What I'm saying here is his office does, I'm sure, their due diligence. They research these things and the governor can sign off. All I'm saying is I would believe if you want to get all of the cronyism, favors out of these pardons, the best people to do it is average citizens. A few years ago, we had Arnold Schwarzenegger as our governor. And Arnold Schwarzenegger pardoned the son of one of his political allies who was convicted on a murder charge or a second degree murder charge or whatever it was. He was ordered, to do 16 years, and I think that he cut it down to half, saying it was unfair, whatever that means. Through his actions, somebody was killed. And so I'm saying that because the governor had a friend whose son committed a horrible crime is how this kid got off easy. We got to do away with that to where legitimate people deserve a clemency process that's minus the politics. And I can guarantee you, based on what I have put together, you ain't going to be using it as some get out of jail free card. I'm not that stupid to where I would create something to where people could just run up, oh, I didn't do it, and then just file paper after paper after paper claiming that they didn't do it, and my new clemency system gets stacked up with a bunch of I didn't do it, and hopes that they can pull one over on Allen. Mm-mm. Now, true, I may not live to see this happen, but I'm setting the table here. And as I'm setting the table here, I'm saying we need a new clemency protocol all across the country. I'm saying that start in California. We really need one as far as the president is concerned. Because I'm telling you, Donald Trump don't need to be able to have control of who gets pardoned when you look at how many crooked friends of his lined up or are in prison, rightfully so, while others who committed no crime takes them 10, 20, and 30 and 40 years to get a pardon. So, until next time, I support the car, sex in car.